What does financial independence actually mean to you?
Financial independence then was like, I'm making a good living to do everything that I want to do. I don't rely on anybody else.
What can people do to look at what they want and what they've got and be able to bridge that gap?
I would be encouraging people to put themselves in environments where people are already creating the kind of success and to observe them, to study them. How do they think? What do they do? How do they move? How are they communicating?
Welcome, I'm Tracy Irwin and I'm passionate about financial independence. And I wanted to share stories of inspiring entrepreneurs to prove it's possible for everyone to strive towards financial freedom. Today, I'm talking to Lisa Hopper. Lisa is a transformational coach, speaker, and author of Truly You, an invitation to be more of your true self. She's the founder of the UK School of Coaching and Self Mastery and the creator of the Truly You experience, a series of powerful immersions that help purpose led humans break through fear, self doubt, and the old patterns so they can lead their lives with clarity, courage, and joy. So, thank you so much for joining me, Lisa. It was lots of things in there, especially about the old patterns, because I'm really interested to talk about how patterns affect our money mindset as well. So I've read what you've said about on your form, and I'm just intrigued. You said you've lived an unconventional life, so I'm just wondering, can you share with everyone like what the start of your journey actually was, please?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, first of all.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I don't actually remember now everything that I put on the form. So you can pull out bits if you feel like I've missed anything
I
out.
will.
Um, but I don't think that I realized I was living an unconventional life. I don't know that I was purposeful at, setting an intention of I'm going to live an unconventional life because I want to be different to everybody else. I don't think that was present at all. Um, I think it was a willingness to really explore what was interesting to me at the time,
Yeah.
and a mix of wanting to get away from certain things that were happening at the time.
You
So
got
I
like
think there was,
21, didn't you? So it took me till I was in my 40s to move to Spain, by the way. So when you
yeah.
left at 21.
I left at 21. I grew up in York. York is my home city, and I'm
Beautiful
very
city.
blessed now. Like no, like living there at the time, I didn't really think that I was blessed, but now looking back, it's definitely a really beautiful city
It is a beautiful
to
city.
have come from. But I left when I was 19, to go down to London. And that was when I first really discovered, like, oh my gosh, there's more to life. There's so much more to life. And there was something really appealing about London, the bright lights, the West End. I loved the vibe. I loved the busyness. Um, and it was there that I met a bunch of Australians who were all traveling the world. And I suddenly realized, like, wait, what? What is this thing that you're talking to me about? Adventure? What is that? Because I was in London because I was going to London College of Fashion. I'd, got into the university there, and so I thought that that was my career path. Um, and then I met these guys, and I was like, hang on, I think this sounds more fun than what I'm doing. So that was the decision. I called my parents. I remember it well from a phone box and just being like, "Hi, by the way, I've left uni. Bye." And yeah, I saved up and then off I went traveling. So I went around Europe for 3 months. I came back from that, completely got the travel bug, and then I went to live in Australia for a year. And again, back then, we're talking about financial independence. I was not even close to financially independent, not even close. I had like £250 and a £600 credit card, my first credit card that had a £600 limit. But I just had this working holiday visa. And I was like, well, you know what? I'll just create work when I'm over there. So that's what I did. Yeah. So
I
that's how
think
it all
that
kind
is
of
the
started.
mindset, isn't it? It's like of knowing that actually these experiences create something. And
Mhm.
what was your parents' reaction actually when you're ringing them from the telephone box? Like, what was their reaction for your future? Kind of like, how did they react to that?
Well, I didn't hang around in the telephone box long
Oh,
enough to
okay.
hang out to find out. But I can imagine, like my parents again, very loving. Very fortunate that I come from, a really like supportive family. And I think that deep down they would just want the best for me. Now my idea of what's best for me and their idea of what's best for me might have been two different things. Um, and so I'm sure they found it very challenging because they would have had this conventional, traditional understanding of, get a good education. We want a good education for you because that's going to give you the security and set you up for life. And so to have this like reckless abandonment of that plan and to just go off on adventure, I think they would have found quite tricky. And they would have probably had that internal conflict of we want what's best for her, we think it's this, and we want her to be happy. And if
Yeah.
this is what's making her happy, then we're supportive of it.
And how long
Um,
did you travel for?
I was away, so my first trip was backpacking around Europe. That was 3 months, and then I left again a few months later, and I went to Australia for a year. I was on a working holiday, and
Nice.
back then it was we were only allowed a year, so I was away for a year. Um, and yeah, it was really. I mean, it was a great experience. I met tons of people. My eyes were wide open, as to like how much life has got for you and different ways of living, different styles of living. Um, and then I came back from there. I met a boy
Yeah.
out there who was from the UK. So we came back to the UK and we kind of settled here for, we were together about 7 years. And so then we bought the house, we had the job, and then I got itchy feet again. And so I disappeared again and I went off to New Zealand this time. And I was gone a year and a half, almost 2 years. Um, and I couldn't get it out of my system after New Zealand. I went to Canada.
Yeah.
And then they had to stop giving me working holiday visas because I was too old. So then I found, myself restricted a little bit. This lifestyle might
Okay.
have to change now because I can't actually work my way around. So the money piece did start to play a part
Yeah.
in my decision making then.
Okay. So, like, what does financial independence actually mean to you? As somebody who's a nomad that actually likes to create memories for yourself, like, what does financial independence mean to you?
I think in the last couple of years it's started to mean something different.
Okay.
So financial independence for me, when I set up my business, I had a lot of story about money, like a lot of limiting beliefs around money.
Okay.
Um, but I had a sheer like tenacity and drive to make something work. Um, and so financial independence then was like, I'm making a good living to do everything that I want to do. I don't rely on anybody else to buy the house, to put food on the table. I don't rely on anyone else. There's no handouts.
Yeah.
So for me, that was financially free. That was like, I'm financially independent. It's me that brings everything in that I could possibly need, and I can have the lifestyle that is a good lifestyle. Um, are you going to ask a question?
I was just going to say, like, you have a list of qualifications, by the way, that are very eccentric. They're not all bunched into one kind of category.
hmm
Like, what was it about? Like, is it fine when you were changing like careers? You can tell people actually because like some of them are really interesting. Um, was it about the money or was it more about the experience in every time that you decided that you wanted to do a new qualification?
Every time for me, it was about the experience.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gone for a job where money, like where I've looked at the salary and gone, I want to do that.
Okay.
Um, it's always been about the experience and yes, it has been a real random mix. So basically, when I came back from Australia, I wanted to move to Australia. And so I came home and my boyfriend at the time and we got this book and we had a look through to see like what's on the skilled list so that we could then emigrate to Australia. And so he went into bricklaying and I went into painting and decorating.
Okay.
So I got this trade certificate. And then I realized at the end of 2 years, like this, I don't know how to really do anything to do with painting and decorating in a way that I could start my own business, And I was like, okay, so I'm not loving it enough really to dive into this on a deeper level. So what else is there that I could do? So I got the book back out and it had hairdressing on there. And I was like, oh, well, I could do that. So that's what I went and did. So I signed up again to another course. I think it was another 2 years. And I was working alongside this, I was just creating space to do like it was a day release or it was evening class.
Okay.
So I was constantly ramming more in than an average human being would to, a regular week. So I was
That's
working
that
full time,
tenacity again,
condensed
isn't
hours.
it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like I want to jam pack this life with like everything possible. And I don't feel, Tracy, like when I'm speaking about it now, I don't feel like it was coming from a sense of lack. You know how some people chase because they don't feel like it's enough. I
Yeah.
feel like I was really jamming life in because I wanted it to be so full and robust and full of experiences.
Yeah.
Um, so I condensed my hours at work, and then I went off to college and did this hairdressing qualification. Um, and then I got a job in a salon. So I quit the job that I was doing. I was working in the police as support staff.
Okay.
And I quit that role and I went and worked as a hairdresser in a salon. And I almost halved my salary at that point because I was kind of starting out as a hairdresser.
Right. Okay.
And I was much older by this point as well, so this had taken a few years to do my painting and decorating and then do my hairdressing. So I was a few years older now. Um, so yeah, that's where I landed, and I got this job in this salon, and I'm still good friends with the salon owners today. So again, it's like I fly the flag for, some of the experiments that we run don't necessarily turn out how we want them to turn out, but there can be so many other great things that come out of these experiments, like I like to call them.
Definitely. I've never heard anyone say that they actually got the qualification to move to Australia before. I knew there was the qualifications that like what was it, you were where you were able to move, but I didn't actually, that thought process has never entered my head before that somebody
Mhm.
would actually spend the time to become something that means, which is brilliant. Because, like, that's for me is more about understanding what your dreams and your goals are and just making them happen. It isn't
Mm,
about letting things happen to you, it's about like taking the bull by its horns and saying, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. So,
yeah.
like how did you, I mean, I've looked into a little bit about the Truly You and I can see your book and your background, so we will go into that in a bit. How did you get into coaching and how did you get into the transformational side of coaching?
Um, well, I fast forward a few more years and hairdressing had come off the skills list. So just
Okay.
as I got enough experience, it was like, we're not taking you guys anymore.
No.
So it never, it never quite happened. Um, and so I went into a career in HR. I've always loved people. One thing hairdressing had taught me was I didn't enjoy the hairdressing as much as the getting to know someone.
Yeah.
I loved the consultation, really diving into someone's life, their lifestyle. I loved speaking to people, hearing what they were up to. And I loved seeing women, especially, walk out more confident.
Okay.
So they've shed whatever stress they were
Yeah.
having, and now they look good and they feel good about themselves and they're walking tall, and you see them like walk out swishing their hair around. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I love that feeling. So I hadn't joined the dots by this point, but I went into this career in HR, and I was in employee engagement, I was in culture and development, culture change and learning and development, and then I went into business partnering, and I felt more and more frustrated that the conversations weren't happening around talent and actually, investing in our talent. So I I was I was not particularly happy in the role that I had landed in, and I was finding the culture quite challenging.
Okay.
Certain behaviors in the leadership team, particularly in my client group, were not wanted, let's say, not desirable. And so I think, we were talking about the push and the pull at the beginning. It's like that was very, very present. There was an interest in talent development, and then there was this like, this is not the place where it's going to happen. And
Okay.
I can give you the name of a person who is a good reason for me to leave, right? So it was like that's kind of the space that I was
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And I was watching TV with my flatmates at the time. I was now down in London. And every Monday night we would have supper club and we would just watch escapism TV, and we would take turns to cook for each other. And we were watching a reality TV program, and there was a life coach on there coaching one of the guys on relationships. And my flatmate turned to me and she's like, Lee, you'd be so good at that. And I was like, I think I would, wouldn't I? So I Googled him, I looked him up, and I found out who he was. And when I looked on his website, he was like 30 grand to work with for the year. And I was a business partner on 40, I think I was on 44 grand, something like that. And so it was a huge chunk of my salary. And I was like, there's no way he'll work with me. You know, the way he created himself on his website was like very prestigious, worked with the elite, you know, top bankers, athletes. Like, why would you work with me? Um, but that little streak that I have in me of like, I'm gonna find out anyway. So I just messaged him. I think I have a bit of mischief as well, you know, of like,
Wow.
I don't care so much about what people think of me sometimes. If I've got an idea, it's like I'm just going to follow that idea.
Yeah.
Um, so I messaged him anyway, and then he wrote back instantly. It was like within a few hours, I had a message, and we arranged to go and meet in London for consultation. And I was just like, after that, we were together for 2 hours, and I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. Um, and he shared with me the fee, which I'd kind of already knew was coming. And then I was like, oh, like my whole body just contracted. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. Um, but I remember thinking to myself, I don't have the money. I don't have the money. However, is it true that I can't get the money? And so I started to feel like this creative thinking. And back then, it was really easy to get credit cards with 0% interest on them. I guess it's quite easy these days as well, but back then it was.
Okay.
Um, and so that's what I did. So I spent the whole weekend like freaking out, but really kind of talking myself into it of like, I'm going to bet on him because he has got the lifestyle that I want. He's making 500K a year. Like, I need to be around someone that knows about business and that's got the business that I want to have. Because I don't think I can do it on my own. So I was really willing to be like, I don't think I can do it on my own without any judgment on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then I was really willing to bet on him, actually. I was willing to bet on his expertise and him telling me what I needed to do. And I was willing to bet on me following his advice.
I
It
think
was like,
that's it, isn't
I'm
it?
just going to go for it.
I mean that is a scary thought of how the percentage of your salary.
Well, I will
Well,
say, Tracy, it wasn't that I didn't put 30K on a credit card. So
okay.
we had some negotiations and we started with eight. So it's
Okay.
3 months. It's 3 months for 8K. And that was what I could get on my credit card as a money transfer into my bank. And so that's what I did.
Are you working harder than ever, but feeling like you're getting nowhere? You're not alone. Most business owners I speak to feel trapped in their own success, working 60 hours plus a week, missing family time, and honestly, they're not even sure why they feel so stuck. They just know something needs to change. If this sounds familiar, I've created a quick quiz to help you find out why you feel stuck in your business. It takes only 2 minutes and I give you clarity on exactly what's keeping you trapped and, more importantly, how to break free. The link's in the description, so why not take it now? That's really good. And actually, that's the point, isn't it? Sometimes, like, I speak to business owners who really need to hire somebody, but they look at the salary for the entire year and say, I don't have that money. And I say to them, this isn't a £40,000 investment. This is a 3 month investment. Like, so literally thinking about it in a more strategic way to be able to hire somebody and know that if it hasn't worked within 3 months, that's what you've lost, not the whole 40,000. And that mindset is exactly the same mindset that you've used to
Hmm.
actually think that, you know, in 3 months' time, if he's not bringing to the table what you'd hoped he would bring to the table, then you knew that you could switch that off. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting what you said about, like, it wasn't just him you were believing in, it's yourself. Like, so many people throw money at coaches, courses, everything, but then don't do anything with it. And they're
Hmm.
hoping that just this, and that's kind of a money mindset that I struggle to understand. I do
Hmm.
get it. I get that, you know, we're in different emotional points, but to know that you have to like trust in yourself and you're putting that much money into somebody else, the trust of somebody else, you've got to trust yourself. You've got to trust yourself to be that, like the tenacity, the implementation, everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
I'm guessing because I mean, like the book is brilliant, so it's like it worked really.
It worked, and here I am, and I'm still doing it. So it did work. Thank hallelujah, thank goodness. Um, but yeah, I do what you're sharing there. I was thinking about this earlier. When I was younger, I would watch, I loved property programs.
So
And
does
I would watch them with my family. I love them. I love nosiness. Even today, I still love nosying around houses. I love these programs, but I would hear, as I'm from Yorkshire, so it would be like, bloody hell, how can they afford that? It
yeah.
was like, that was the language that I kind of like was growing up around. And so I think a lot of that conditioning from an early age had me almost guaranteed a default future because it didn't occur to me that I did have agency to do something different.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing for a lot of people. I think I'm really blessed that I made the choices that I made. And I went off and I had these different experiences because what it did was it opened up my eyes to the fact that I do have agency to create something different now. And so I just questioned that conditioning unknowingly. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I think if I had stayed in the same environment and I hadn't moved around, I hadn't put myself in different environments where I was literally seeing other people do different things, I think that I would have just accepted that what I know is the limit. Like that's it. And maybe you can have linear growth, but I don't think that I realized you could change now. You can literally invite yourself into a different way of thinking, a different way of being, a different way of seeing yourself. Because I would just be, the ceiling would just be on my thinking of like, well, that's not possible for me because I'm da da da. And then we would just go into that reinforcing like who we are and how we see ourselves to be.
If somebody is watching this and is nodding and thinking, that's where I'm at, I feel like I've got a ceiling or I've got a place, or like what can people do? Because obviously everyone can't go around the world and see all the amazing things that
Mm.
you have seen, because I'm very jealous because I know you've seen lots of penguins.
Mm.
But um what can people do to look at what they want and what they've got and be able to bridge that gap so that they can actually have agency for themselves?
I think the first step is to allow yourself permission to just be really honest about where you're at and to see the innocence of it. So I think that we carry a lot of shame or we carry a lot of judgment and on our situations, and that doesn't allow us to even be honest or to dream. So I think the first step is really allowing myself just for a minute, let me just take away my judgment and let me just get really honest and accurate about where am I and what would I love? What would I truly love to create? And if it's too much of a stretch to go like wild into the imagination, just make it like 50% doable. What would be 50% believable this time next year, for the changes that I want to see? And just start there if your mind's really resistant to like imagining. Um, and then I would say there has to be a willingness. There really has to be a willingness to actually let go of some of the narrative and the reasons why you can't do something or you can't have something. There has to be a willingness to question those perspectives. Like, is it accurate? And you can always find someone who's had a more difficult upbringing than you, who's had less than you, but who has got your version of success. So I think there's that honesty, that compassion, and that willingness to really try out a different perspective. And there's lots and lots of different ways that you can do this. I sometimes go and stand at the other side of the room and imagine it's 1 year from now, and I already have what it is that I say I want. And then I look back at myself here in this chair, and it's like, what do you want her to know from this position, from over there? You've already transcended this challenge. What is it that you want her to know about the journey? Who is it that you were being? Like what bold move did you have to make? And then when we start to invite ourselves into taking slightly bolder moves, that's when all the stuff comes up. That's when the feelings come up. That's when the thoughts come up. So you'll start to bump into your edges and you'll start to get to what's actually really stopping me. Because, I could go and make the ask. I literally physically could go and stand up and I could go over there and I could ask the person what I want to ask for. Like physically, I could do it.
Yeah.
But mentally, we've got a lot of things that get in the way. So if we visualize ourselves standing up, going over, making the ask, whatever your version of that bold move is, then you'll start to be like, I can't because. You'll start to feel it in your stomach or your throat or your chest. And you can ask that part of you, like, what is it that you're worried about? And it's like, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be rejected. Like all of that stuff starts to circulate. And then once we start to get to the root of what it is, we can start to separate it from ourselves. So it's not us, it's not our identity that's at risk. We literally separate it from ourselves. So it's like, I'm going to be rejected. Okay, let's take a look at that. So we're afraid of rejection. So let's just put it up here. What does rejection look like? What's rejection worried about? So I'm starting to disassociate. Not what are you worried about? What's rejection worried about? So starting to get a little bit of distance. So there's lots and lots of different processes and tools that we can use. But essentially, the process that I take people through is just that honesty. Where am I? Where do I want to be? That invites in more expansive thinking. Self compassion to invite in more expansive thinking.
Yeah.
Disassociation so that we can start to explore the subconscious, the beliefs, and the conditioning. And then we start to invite in different perspectives. And again, lots of different ways you can do it archetypes, using the room, like future self. Um, yeah, but I think I would want people to know they can choose now. It's a decision, it's a willingness and a decision to take a stand for something and to be it now.
What happens then when the decision that they want to make, the bold move that they want to make, is something that's financially scary? So it's a
Mm.
risk. Like, what habits do we form in ourselves to keep us, I want to say safe, because I think that's what it is sometimes, isn't it? It's like our riskiness to like push further.
Mm.
Like, what is it about our like minds that make us stay safe rather than taking those bold moves that would actually make us more successful, more have more financial independence?
I mean, the mind's job is to keep us safe. There's a part of the brain where it literally is its job to keep us safe. So it's doing its job. So there's nothing to worry about. It's completely human. And actually, you're working perfectly. Like if you didn't have the fear response, then actually, there was one woman who I was listening to a podcast, and it was a woman who couldn't experience fear.
Oh,
And she was
wow.
incredibly vulnerable. That part of the brain had like got calcium deposits on it or something, so it couldn't
Okay.
fire up. And so she was incredibly vulnerable. So I'm grateful that I feel fear. So there's your first tip of
Yeah.
like, instead of making fear wrong and wishing you didn't have it, actually, it's a beautiful thing that I get to have fear. Because in the moments where I am physically not safe, I would want it to be alerting me. If I was about to step in front of a traffic, I
Yes.
would want it to be telling me about that. So I don't want to lose that element of my mind. Thank you very much.
No.
Um, but what it does is it confuses those moments with, 99% of the moments we imagine as life-threatening that are not life-threatening. So again, just taking another look, I like to say, blink and look again. What's actually here?
Okay.
Are you in physical danger? Are you safe? You're imagining leaving your job. You're imagining starting your business. You're imagining not having a regular income coming in. And you're already feeling the panic around that, but you're still in your job.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that fascinating that you can create that sensation even though nothing has changed, you're still in your job? So I love to help people just notice that as a starting point. Because if we can start to notice that, the fear, the feelings that we get don't grip us as much. Because I think that we just have an automatic response to feelings and we believe them without questioning them. So I love to say, like, are you safe right now in this moment? And then I would just get accurate. Everybody has a different risk level as to what they're comfortable with. So I would never give like generic advice. It's always like, what's your risk level? Where's your comfort zone? Where's your edge? And then where's panic? Because we want to stay out of panic zone as best we
Okay.
can. Edge it can be a fun place to explore. So with my scenario, I wasn't putting 30 grand on a credit card. That would be panic.
Yeah.
But I had done some calculated risk and I knew, I have a job that's 44 grand a year. I could stay in it. I could easily get another HR job if I needed to. Um, I could get a second job. I have many certificates doing many things.
You
I could
do.
probably get 10 jobs if I needed to. And I had like, I think it was 36 months or something like that of 0% interest.
Okay.
So I knew I wasn't racking up debt. And so that was my kind of calculated risk. So I get curious about like, what's my risk level?
Yeah.
My body will tell me where
I
my
think
panic
it's really
zone lies.
interesting that you said how you did calculations. So you backed up your risk with data. And I think
Hmm.
that's really important, isn't it? It's about putting the mind and the pragmatic, even if I can say it, the
Hmm.
pragmatic stuff together to actually help you to stop that fear. Because when you actually have the data in front of you, the risk becomes less risky. It's
Mm.
kind of like it's just making sure that I mean if you do know if there's anybody that sat wishing that they could start their business, like what kind of advice would you give them? Like is it kind of like just baby steps? Is it a mindset set shift? What is it?
Gosh, Tracy, I think it would really depend on the individual.
Okay.
I think it would. Some people, I want to know what motivates you. Are
Okay.
you someone who's motivated by burn the bridges and let's go? Are you someone who's motivated by, I just need to make it safe and doable? Then I'm not going to be saying burn the bridges.
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on, you got to start paying attention to yourself and like what drives you, what motivates you. Um, and I would definitely be bigging up the human being. I would definitely be working on having them see themselves as someone who is capable, confident, very able to make these moves. I would be encouraging people to put themselves in environments where people are already creating the kind of success and to observe them, to study them. How do they think? What do they do? How do they move? How are they communicating? Um, Not to become them, but to notice like what are the ways of being that people who have what I want are doing? Like, how are they operating in the world?
I think that's a really good thing about podcasts. Podcasts have brought successful people into our lives that we can sit, we can listen to what they're saying, we can watch the actions that they do. They kind of like, I like it that Instagram have a lot of so that where I want to say famous people, I don't know a better word for it. Celebrities tend to hang out on Instagram more than any other platform. And I think it's because they can genuinely be authentic and be themselves. And we get the pleasure of being able to see that and feeling like we know them better. So being able to watch somebody who has like the lifestyle that you want, especially in business, the podcasts that I think are the perfect place to just kind of listen and learn
Mhm.
and kind of observe. I think that's really important is to observe the kind of life that they live. I'm listening actually to the Let Them theory
Mhm.
at the minute, and Mel's amazing. She's like
Mhm.
really good, and she talks about how you know the the things that we do in our spare time create what happens in our future. And she said, about people being sat next to each other at work, they both want to actually create a new life for themselves and create a business. But one's doing that at the weekend, going like learning, doing
Mhm.
courses, doing and the other one's socializing and going to bars all the time. And she said, when the other person leaves, the other one's like, oh, like I need to look in the mirror. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like that urgency, isn't it? It's like it is up to us,
It's
really. And
definitely up to us. And you've just got to see, you've just got to see that it is up to you and find ways to understand like the how do I make this happen? There's the how do I make this happen? And there's a who do I need to be to make this happen? When I started my business, I used to row. I loved rowing. Every weekend I would be rowing, maybe a couple of times a week during the week I would be rowing. And I loved being out on the water in London. It was just such a cool feeling. And it was a social sport as well, which again, that community element was big for me. But when I started coaching, I was working full time, I was working my notice period, and then I would coach in the evening and on weekends. And so I didn't have time to go and row anymore because it's a big time commitment. There's 8 of us in the boat. It takes a long time to get us all ready, to get the boat out, to get the boat in. Like it was a big ordeal. So I would be gone for the whole day. So I had to make the decision like I'm going to give up rowing, but I still wanted to stay fit. So I would set my alarm for like, I think it was 6:15. And 3 times a week, I would go with my flatmate to the gym. So we would do an early morning class. So it was like some of my routine really had to change. But again, it was like a conscious choice of I want to build this business into a success. So I don't see it as a sacrifice or a compromise. It's something that I'm doing. I want this. And so therefore, this is the casualty that I have to park for a while. So I do think there's some adjustments that need to be made. You said something else earlier on. I don't remember what it was now. I had a point I wanted to share, but it's gone. It might come
Oh
back.
no.
I know that's what happens with my mind, Tracy.
Your business is successful, so why do you feel so miserable? Here's the thing, success doesn't always automatically equal freedom. I see profitable business owners every day who can't take a holiday, who can't switch off, and they feel completely overwhelmed by their own achievements. Sound familiar? Well, I've created a simple quiz that pinpoints exactly why you feel stuck in your business. It will give you the clarity you need to move from being trapped to being free. Why don't you take the quiz now? The link's in the description below. I try my hardest not to not to speak too much because I'm really intrigued in everything that you've said. So what's next for you? Oh, please tell me about the book first. So please tell me what's inside Truly You. What does it do for people?
Um, it's more of this conversation, I think, but in book form, it's like really helping people understand the nature of thought. Like we have so many thoughts that drive our behaviors. The thought is what creates the feeling. The feeling drives the behaviors and the behaviors shape the results. But we always look at changing the behavior. We just go straight to like, how can I do a different behavior to get a different result? But if you've got those beliefs that are creating feelings that you want to avoid, it's going to be really difficult to create sustainable change at behavioral level. So the book kind of talks to you a little about like the human operating system, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, results system. That's the first part, just creating a bit of an awareness and an understanding of who we actually are and how we work. And then the middle part is all about life lessons. So 13 life lessons from a life coach. Things like being in the game, like get on the court, if you want to have something happen, are you in the sidelines? Are you like watching everybody else play the game and wishing that it was you? Where's there opportunity to actually get on the game, on the court? So that's how it starts. And then there's lots of different lessons around forgiveness, around judgment, around the beliefs that are driving us and how we can release some of them and step into new identities now, not later. And then the third part is an invitation into your future. So, we've gone through the book, there's exercises in there, you'll be discovering a lot about yourself. And now it's really time to breathe life into those pages and those learnings. So that's the third part, is an invitation to put it all together and actually create the future that you want. And again, the book, it came about because I just put myself in environments where people were writing books. And I'd paid a lot of money to be in this program that I was in. As part of that, they were doing a book writing course. And I was like, well, I'll just go and see. Like, I have no interest in writing a book, but I'm here and I want to get my money's worth.
Yes.
So that's still the Yorkshire still in me. I want to get value for money here.
That you
So I'm going to
definitely are from
squeeze at the
Yorkshire.
top. Yeah. Some things I still haven't shaken off. But yeah, so I was there and I was listening, and then I was like, well, I'll just start mapping this out a little bit. And before I knew it, here we are. So it took I think about a year and a half maybe to actually come into physical form.
Would you like to
Um,
should I tell you how long my book took to get into physical form, Lisa?
how long, Tracy?
So
Already, I love the answer.
I wrote my book in 2018, and
Hmm.
then it sat on my laptop for 6 years whilst I procrastinated because I had imposter syndrome. I
Right.
could not understand every time I tried to edit it. And I kept going back to it. And every time I tried to edit it, I just kept thinking, why? Why would anyone
Mhm.
want to read my story? And then in 2023, the very beginning of 2023, I met my editor
Mhm.
and she said, "Give me the book." And honestly, when I even read the first copy she sent me back, I was like, wow, she turned my story into a really easy to read, legible, like it's an amazing book. And I'm just like, I wished, I wished I'd done it sooner. I don't,
Yeah.
in the fact that I believe everything happens for a reason, and I think then was the right time for me to do that. But yeah, it took me 6 years to get my book
Yeah.
into
It's
print form.
fascinating. I mean, it it is that's a classic of what we're talking about here, of like how our internal being states get in the way. Where I have a feeling in my body, driven by a story, that's creating my behavior of procrastinating. So therefore the result is no book out there.
Yeah,
And that happens all the time. Every day, every minute of every day in all of our lives, that is the operating system that's going on, a version of that. So if we can use it against us, we can use it for us.
yeah,
And one of the things I love about that story as well is if you can't do it for yourself, find someone who can.
yeah,
Right? It's like if I'm struggling to send this email or I'm struggling to do this, somebody out there is gonna be able to do it for you.
yeah.
So delegate, and you'll save so much time. And that's what your editor did.
She did. And I think asking for help sometimes, I think coaches, as coaches, we've recognized this because we're very self aware and we understand the importance of helping other people. But asking for help sometimes is the most sensible thing that you can do. It's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to like, nobody wants to rip you off. Everyone wants to help. And actually, sometimes asking for help is the quickest way to the money because
Mm,
actually, somebody who has been there or understands what you're going through can help you change so much quicker.
yes.
And it
Yeah.
is, it's asking for, yeah, for 6 years I didn't.
Yeah.
But it's been out to
100%.
two, so
I remember, Tracy, that the first time I had that feeling of like, oh man, I feel really like almost naked right now was when I was handing over the manuscript because I'd written the draft, and then there was some publishers in the space where my office is. And they were like, give us the book and we'll have a look at it. And so I printed it off. And then as I was trotting over to them, suddenly I was like, I feel really naked right now because there's a lot of my story in the book.
yeah,
And that
fantastic.
was the first time because my mind hadn't raced into the future. So this is another lesson for everyone. Keep coming back to the here and now. Keep coming back to the here and now. The mind will want to go to the future. What if I get a bad review? What if this happens? What if this happens? And my process was just enjoy where I'm at right now. And
Yeah.
so it hadn't created that anxiety that's future based. And if it does, again, that's okay too. You don't have to believe what you're thinking.
No. And I mean, now looking at the feedback, like I get it, it seemed ridiculous. It's laughable to say it, but thinking of that, enjoying the here and now, when I did the Audible book, I went into a studio in Knutsford for 3 days and I spoke the book and I enjoyed it. It was hard work. It's harder than you think it is to be a voiceover. Like literally, I have respect for people who do this full time. And the bloopers part of my book is like amazing. I share it every so often because it's just so funny. Um, but I loved it. As an accountant, like that experience is something I would have never have thought possible in my lifetime. And I just enjoyed it. I just really, I
Mm.
literally did enjoy the moment because I thought it's not going to happen again.
Mm.
I keep saying that there is no. Do you think there's a book number two for you, Lisa?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't think there
No.
was book number one, so let's find out. Never say never, but yeah, it's
No,
not
I'm a
it's not
bit
on the agenda right now, but who knows?
good. Good.
Um,
So, well, thank you so much. If you can just share where, if people want to get hold of you, where can people get hold of you from?
my website is probably the best bet, which is lisahoppercoaching.com. All my socials are linked to my website and my email is on there as well. So yeah, that's probably the best place.
And the book is Amazon?
The
Oh,
book, yeah, all good book outlets, but Amazon definitely you can find it on there. I'll share the link with you if you want to put it in
yeah,
there
perfect. Everything
in
will
the
be
show notes.
underneath. So, just one, if you've got one last piece of advice to anyone who's struggling with financial independence, they're stuck feeling like they are in a hole that they can't get out of themselves, what's the one piece of advice you could give?
If they feel like they can't get out themselves, then they have to ask for help. Um, yeah, allow yourself permission to be human. Allow yourself to take away any judgment that you have on that and step into a different perspective that actually it's really empowering to be free enough within yourself to ask for support and assistance.
Yeah.
That's leadership.
It is, yeah. Thank you so much. That's a brilliant advice to end on. So, thank you again for joining me. I knew it was going to be a great conversation. I wasn't wrong either, definitely. But yeah, so thank you again, Lisa, and thank you for everyone that listened.
Thanks for having me. I've had a great time. Thanks, Tracy. I
Cheers.
remembered what I was going to say. Do you want me to say, like, what I
Can
was
you
going to say?
remember what you were going to say?
I remembered what I was going to say earlier.
Go
So
on then.
you were talking about like studying like
Yeah.
podcasts were a great way of finding out what other people are doing who have what you want. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was talking about financial independence
Okay.
and financial freedom. And it was saying if we have this traditional view of retirement, so we work until we're 65 or 67, and then we retire.
Yeah.
And what if you spread that those retirement years out throughout your life? And I was like, okay, I mean, I've heard of this before, but I've never actually done the maths. So I got ChatGPT to help me with the maths. And I was like, this is how old I am. This is how long I plan on living for. This is, this, therefore, my retirement years would be this. Work it out for me. And it was like, oh, you could take 6 months off a year. And I was like, well, that just isn't physically possible. Like financially,
Yeah.
I'm not in a position to take 6 months off every single year. But instead of going, I'm not in a position, end of story, which is what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
my mind started to go, well, how would I make that possible? How would I make that possible? And then the piece around financial independence that you asked around, and I was saying it looks a bit different for me now. A few years ago, I found a lump in my breast, and so I went to have these tests, and there was this 2 week period where I was waiting for the results, and luckily it came back benign. But I was really then starting to think there is nobody that looks after me if I can't work. So that financial freedom that I felt was based on me staying in good health.
Yeah.
And so this was a moment of like, what needs to shift in my business to generate income that doesn't require me to be there as much? So again, it was like, I think these things come along, and if you train your mind to think more entrepreneurial, you start to think more creatively. You start to think of not like that's the end of the chapter, I can't have that. It was like, who would I need to be and what would I need to create if I did want to take 6 months off?
Yeah.
And then I start to look at how can I get systems and people and funnels and all that kind of stuff um,
That's exactly
involved.
what I did to move to Spain. So
Mm,
when I woke up in 2016 and was like, I'm not happy, the first thing was I felt really guilty for feeling like that because I felt like I had a life many would dream of. But after I realized that actually I'm not even living that's the case, I'm not living my life, I'm living somebody else's happiness.
mm,
I worked out how could I do make my business work so that I could live in a different country. It wasn't well, I can't do that because I've got this big huge accountancy practice that I need to run. That didn't cross my mind once. It was like, what do I need to do to make this happen? And I think that is the key, isn't it? And I think that's
mm,
an entrepreneurial brain. I think that's the difference between people who have it and don't. It's we
mm,
don't look at, well, there's my ceiling. We think, how are we going to make that work? So it's the same now. So on Friday, I'm going to England to look after my grandchildren so my daughter can work. And I created a business that allows me to do that. Could I take 6 months off? Probably not. I could have done in the accountancy, by the way. So
Hmm.
I'll say now, I feel like my business is called the Time Freedom Alchemist, and I feel like a fraud right now because I have no time freedom because I've started a new business. Not, it will get there, and I know I've got plans, but right now I do feel a little bit of a fraud. But I have still created something where I can go and I can be grandma for a while. So it's kind of it's working out, isn't it? And I think that's really interesting that you just look at how to make it happen rather than it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and you can cultivate the entrepreneurial mind. Like I was an employee for all of my life until I wasn't. So that's the thing. You know, I had a friend, we were sitting, she came to stay with me for a few months and we were in this bar and I asked her a question like, how much of that have you done today? And she was like, what? And that was like questioning her thought. And she's like, what? And I was like, well, how much have you questioned that idea? And she's like, well, I haven't. And I was like, well, that's like going into the gym. She still loved the gym. So I'm like, that's like going into the gym and saying you can't pick up that massive heavy weight because you've never even started picking up weights. It's like you've just got to start picking up the weights and then eventually you can start to pick up the big heavy weight. And that's the same with the mind. It's like it is trainable. You can start to train your mind to think differently. Um,
Do you think it's like contagious? Like I find that when people who are employed hang around with people who are have a business and they run and they hear them talking and they hear all the like the good parts of it because it's not all great,
mhm.
but you know, like the really exciting parts are definitely worth the low bits. And do you think that it is actually contagious for people? People kind of get that bug thing to be able to want to be an entrepreneur themselves.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Um, because it's so creative and it's so for me I have a big value around learning and it's a space where you just get to learn so many different ideas and so many different things happening and so when you're in those environments people start talking about AI or they start talking about finance or they start talking about technology and I'm like I didn't even think about doing that like that's just opened up a whole new world which also can be dangerous because
Yes,
you know
yes,
if it's like actually I just need to focus on this
yeah.
one thing right now and I've suddenly got like 1,000 ideas pinging away but yeah, I do think there's something infectious about it.
Well, thank you very much again.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, it's been a joy. I'm gonna go and have to see what my dogs are barking about.
Go and investigate and listen, have the best time being granny.
Thank you. I can't wait. Really can't wait. I'm bringing them back here actually in week two, but
Mm,
I'm going to be there for a week.
amazing.
So, but yeah, thank you again, and I will definitely speak to you soon. All
All
right.
right. See you
Thanks,
soon. Thanks,
Lisa.
Tracy.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching to the end. I really appreciate it, and it shows that you are serious about moving your business forward. I want to share something with you. When I was little, I watched my mum skip meals so my brother and I could eat because she didn't have enough money to feed us all. That pain changed everything. I promised myself I would never need to rely on anyone else financially. I worked relentlessly towards financial independence. Even as a young parent of 19, I still worked. And once I achieved financial independence, I became passionate that everyone deserves the same. But here's what I've discovered. Successful business owners can feel financially trapped just in a different way. And that's why I created the Money Metrics Academy to help you understand your essential business numbers in under an hour a week. No jargon, no overwhelm, just the clarity you need for true financial independence. Why not join the free entry-level membership and see how the community can help you? Let's get unstuck together.